All right. We are going to go deep into it and discuss uh, can, how you can become a pilot, how you can become a pilot like me. So, chat, I want you to just type that you're on board, and so that we can even start on the topic of today. So, first of all, what has intrigued you to click on this video and also to click on this live stream? Is it that you want to find a different career path? You're a young guy that is looking for advice on how you can get into the pilot career? If so, welcome on board. My name is, as you can see, Flygenics, not my real name on the ID, but later on I'll reveal my name. So let's talk about how to become a pilot. What's the intrigue part of becoming a pilot? What are the pros and cons of becoming a pilot? So for you to become a pilot, people say that you must be good at, you must be good at physics, you must be good at maths. Yeah, for sure, you should be good in terms of the theory. But it doesn't mean that if you didn't take any science lesson or any science subject that you cannot become a pilot. That's a misconception. Second thing, or the second misconception that I hear a lot from people is if you're wearing glasses, you cannot become a pilot. Oh, is that right? Let me think. I don't think so. I don't think so, because for me, I wear glasses, and they are prescribed glasses, and right now I'm a pilot. So the only reason that you hear that the misconception about wearing glasses and becoming a pilot is the limitations that you're going to have. So there are different ways, or there are different reasons that you might be needing. You might be needing glasses. Maybe you're far-sighted, maybe you're short-sighted, or maybe you have another you have another reason as to why you're needing glasses. But that doesn't limit you to become a pilot. So what we usually do is you usually have to undergo a medical examination, and this medical examination is done by a qualified medical doctor who will examine you if you're fit to fly an airplane. The examination itself, it depends on where you come from, but generally all the aviation authorities, they require someone to have a certain category of medical to be able to fly a plane. We are going to talk about the categories of medical that are in line with different types of licenses that we have. So as you start your pilot training, the first thing that you want to do is go on to do a discovery flight. This is a type of a flight that you just go for a kind of a joyride. So this joyride, you have to go with an instructor on board. He will take you through what it takes to be a pilot. You'll have a chance of assessing yourself, assessing the fear that you have of heights, and you'll be able to know that you don't have any fear of height. It's just a misconception that people usually have, that, oh yeah, I fear heights, but deep down, once you start your flight training, it's going to get much better. So talking about that, after you do your first discovery flight, the institution or the school that you did your discovery flight will welcome you, will give you like a leaflet to go with it at home. You're going to have a look at it and assess your plans on how you're going to become a pilot. That in mind, let's say you have made your decision, you want to become a pilot. So the first thing and the first most important thing is your medical. You don't want to invest into becoming a pilot without passing the medical. So the medicals are grouped in 4 groups: category 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when you start your medical, it's really advised to do a category 1 medical, of which it will last you longer, not in terms of time, but in terms of the training that you're going to be doing. So when you're doing the category 1 medical, you must be questioning yourself, what do they look at? So the first medical that you're going to be done, it's going to include a very intensive medical. They're going to check on your eyes, they are going to check on your ears, how good you're able to listen to certain sounds. They're also going to check your it's called an ECG. Like, they're going to check your lungs, how you're breathing, how your heart rate is, and they're also going to check the coordination of your eyes in terms of hand to eye coordination. And finally, they're also going to check on the color, how good you are at identifying different colors, because it's very important when it comes to flying. So luckily you become you successfully do the medical and you pass the medical. So what you're going to receive is a medical certificate. In this case, if you did your category 1 medical, your license is going to include a category 1 medical, of which it's going to be on your file, and it shows that you're fit to fly. So there are different types of categories of medical. We talked about category 2, category 3, and category 4. So the other categories don't really matter on this topic. There's one category that the ATC, the people who talk at the tower, they're supposed to have. And there's another category of medical where it's limited to the number of passengers you're going to be flying, and also the type of airplane that you're going to be flying on. In terms, when I talk about that, it's not the type, but it's the limitation of the license that you're going to be having. In this case, it's called a recreation type of a license. And we are not going to talk much about that, because we are planning to learn how to become a pilot, so that you can be paid to fly, but not doing it as a recreational. So talking about that, so once you're done with your medical, the other thing that you want to start to do is now start reading on the fundamentals of flying. So how to become a pilot, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to just be flying the plane. No, that doesn't that doesn't work like that. So the reason because is even if you compare it to driving, before you went to do your driving test, you had to pass your knowledge test. Am I right? Yeah, I believe so. So it's similar to the flying portion. So when you go to start your pilot license, you need to know the background in flying. You need to understand how you're flying. You need to understand if you need to understand the fundamentals of flying itself. So what happens is you are given a chance to buy books, to purchase courses online, so that you can be in par, or you can be in par in terms of studies and your flying wise. So talking about that, so the flying portion might start within 1 or 2 weeks after you are admitted, and also it can start earlier depending on different circumstances. But I will advise you, even before you start your flying portion, try as much as possible to get your knowledge done as quick as possible. Give yourself 3 weeks, 1 month to go through your knowledge, the knowledge that you're required to have before you even start flying. So if in this case you have the knowledge, guess what will happen when you go to fly? What will happen is your flying will be much more comfortable. Yes, that's the case on it. And like they said, if you're prepared for a flight, then the flight is going to be even much more comfortable, much more smoother, and most importantly, you're going to save even money. So let's say, for example, you have done your ground, you have done your knowledge test, you have not really the knowledge test, but you have advanced on your knowledge lessons, and you have started your first flight. So the first few flights won't be that you can say it won't be that comfortable for you. You might be feeling a little bit nausea, but remember, that's okay. So that's a feeling that you're going to feel on the first few flights, but as time goes by, the feeling is going to reduce more and more. You're going to get more comfortable doing certain maneuvers with your instructor, and you're going to enjoy the flying portion of it. So the first few, let's say 10 hours, what will happen is you are going to be going with your instructor to a certain area that is called like the practice area, where students and instructors usually go to do certain maneuvers. And for the first 10 hours, you're going to be familiarizing yourself with how a plane works. Basically, you're going to do some maneuvers like let me say straight and level. You're going to be doing some procedures like stalls. You're going to understand how a plane stalls, what are the factors that make that plane to fly, and later on you're going to understand how to fly the plane generally. Talking about that, once you do your first 10 hours, you're going to advance and go towards the circuits. So the circuit itself is just like a racetrack where you're going to be practicing how to take off and how to land. So quick disclaimer here is this is the portion that you're going to spend a lot of time. You're going to perfect that skill of landing your plane within the center line of the runway. Sometimes it takes 15 hours, sometimes it takes 20 hours, 30 hours, depending on how prepared you are. Like I said, depending on how prepared you are. Remember when I started this live, I talked about preparation. So if you're prepared knowledge-wise, and you keep on track on how your flying is going, then you're going to do your landings properly, and you're going to be able to even solo with the least amount of hours. I've talked about a solo. So when you're doing your landings and practices, there's going to be a point that your instructor will be able to release you for a solo. And for them to release you for a solo, they will be able to know that you're fit enough to even fly that plane when you are alone. So they will release you. You're going to do one circuit, and you're going to land that plane when you're alone. It's such a huge milestone getting to that first solo. A lot of students, when they start, they usually wonder, when am I going to get my solo? But what I usually tell them is keep on improving day by day. Remember, in flying, today and tomorrow, it's a different day. How today you feel, it's going to be different on how tomorrow is going to be. So make sure that each and every day becomes a learning lesson. Make sure that whatever you have learned that day, go ahead, write it down, and improve on certain areas that you have been told by your instructor. So let's say you have gotten your solo. What will happen is you're going to be given a chance to build up at least 5 hours of solo or even more. So you're going to be taking that plane, starting it up, do those circuits until you're proficient with the circuits and until you're proficient with flying that plane and landing that plane. As soon as you're done with your solo hours, what will happen is you're going to go into the next session. The next session is the cross-country portion of flying. So wait a minute, you've said that you're going to be doing circuits and later on you're going to be doing cross countries. Yes, you're going to be doing cross countries, and the cross countries involve flying from one airport to another. And this might seem challenging at first because remember, the first 10 hours that you spent on the flying, you spent them with the instructor, and he or she was showing you how the basics of flying. But the cross country becomes an intense session because now you have to learn how different airports operate, how to join different airports, how to navigate. Remember, navigation in flying is different how you navigate on ground. Let's say when you're using your GPS on your car, you want to go to a certain address. That's typically different from what you do on the flying. So on the cross-country portion, you're going to understand it much better if you have gone through the navigation part of your knowledge test, and if you do the proper briefing with your instructor before the cross country. So in this case, you're going to be doing around 5 cross countries. 2 of them you're going to be doing them with your instructor. Then the third one you're going to do a solo cross country. But before you go for the solo cross country, what will happen is your instructor will go back with you to the practice area where you first started knowing how to fly. He will reintroduce some new topics on the practice area. He will show you how to perform certain maneuvers in case you encounter some difficulties in flying. That is, let's say you have encountered an engine failure in flying. He will show you how to do the different procedures. He will show you how to do some precautionary procedures in case you have, let's say, a person on board that is not feeling well. He will show you different procedures on that. He will also introduce some instrument flying, just in case you do a flight alone and you encounter instrument conditions of flying. Speaking about that, this whole time you're always flying visually. What I mean by flying visually is you are always relying on the visual encounter outside. So every moment that you're flying, you are looking outside and you're just confirming on the instruments panel that is usually on the flight deck. So what happens is after you have done your practice area practices with your instructor, he or she is going to release you for a practice solo flight. You're going to take the plane, you're going to go to the practice area, do some little bit of navigation over there. Then you're going to be mandated to come back to the same airport that is your home airport. With that in mind, you have practiced the first portion of navigation. You have navigated from a different area and it's not the circuit that is usually 1 mile of that aerodrome or airport. So you're going to be flying, let's say, around 10 mile or 15 mile towards the practice area, do your practices, then come back. So after you do the practice area solo, then your instructor is going to brief you on how you're going to start your first cross country. The first cross country is going to be a very short cross country. You're going to he's going to have he or she is going to have a predetermined aerodrome that you're going to be flying towards. So you're going to take the plane, start it up, go towards a different airport, make a landing over there, then take the plane and come back to the same home airport. At first, this is usually the most intimidating cross country because you have never done it, but as soon as you do that cross country, you will enjoy the rest of them. So in this cross country, you're going to know how you're going to join different types of aerodromes. You're going to understand how to join different airports, how to there are different types of airports in this case. Some of the airports have tower on board and others they don't have tower on board, and you're going to be doing that alone while flying. So the second part of cross country is you're going to be doing a long cross country. This long cross country will involve you having full stops at 3 different aerodrome other than the aerodrome that you is the home aerodrome. So it's going to be a long cross country that takes around, let's say, 5 hours or so or less, depending on the stops that you have done. Remember, all the navigations that you do will have to be the navigations that you do while flying. You have no space of doing any errors. You have to abide by the air laws that are stipulated on different airspaces. So you must be wondering, how do pilots know where to fly, right? Are there roads? Are there routes? Yes, you're right. We have specific routes that we use to know if we are flying accordingly with the air laws that are stipulated. So when we are flying when we are airborne and flying, remember that we don't want to have any occurrence of encountering another aircraft coming towards us or an incident of that case. So when we are flying towards the east and when we are flying towards the west, there are different types of flight routes that we use. What I mean by flight routes that we use is we fly at different levels of flights. So for example, if I'm flying towards the east, what happens is I usually fly at an odd number plus 500 feet, and if I fly towards the west, I fly at an even number plus 500 feet. So if you think of that, you might be able to understand how or why that happens. If you fly, let's say, 2,500 feet towards 2,500 feet towards the east, and someone else is flying at 2,700 feet above you and is going towards the east. So what happens is there is no risk of collision at that case because the different flight levels are able to separate you two. So let's take that portion out. So we have done the cross countries. So the next part that you're supposed to do is now do your check ride preparation, having in mind that you have completed your knowledge test. So all this time that you're doing all this flying, remember that you are also keeping in touch, or you're also continuing with your flight knowledge preparation. As soon as you feel that you're ready to do your flight knowledge test, you are able to book that knowledge test. In this case, for you to be able to book a knowledge test in Canada, you need to have a specific number of flight hours. In this case, you need to have more than 10 hours of flying. And secondly, you need to have a medical that is valid. Remember, from the word go on this live, I talked about the medical. The medical is a very important factor, and you need it all along. So as soon as you get done with your knowledge test, you're going to go back with your instructor, perfect all the exercises that you guys have been doing. He or she is going to give you some tips and tricks on how you're going to make those exercises much better, much smoother, and most importantly, much safer. For you to start on the private pilot license, the most critical thing is safety. So we usually look at safety on the private pilot license. As long as you are safe to fly a plane, then you're going to be handed over the certificate. But have in mind that you need to pass that knowledge test, and you also need to pass that check ride. So as soon as your instructor feels that you're confident enough and you're competent enough to do that check ride, he or she is going to give you a recommendation, of which that recommendation means that you are fit to exercise a check ride. This check ride might seem very intimidating at first, because remember, you've never done any check ride in terms of flying. You don't know how they test, what they test, what they emphasize on. But always have in mind to keep calm. People are born to make errors. Pilots are born to make errors, but make sure that if you make an error, you are able to recognize that error and correct for that error as quick as possible. Remember, when I say as quick as possible, it doesn't mean it has to be unsafe. It has to be quick enough but safe for both of you. That is, you as a student, and you as your co-pilot, or the captain, like the instructor or the examiner themselves. So let's say, for example, you've gone for the check ride, you've done your check ride, and you've passed the check ride. Woo! Congratulations! Now you are a certified private pilot. So you must be asking yourself, if I have the private pilot license, can I take a jet? Can I take a Boeing? Can I take an Airbus and go and fly? Yeah, you can, but on GTA. I'm just kidding. So for that case, you will need to have a commercial license. Speaking about that, so when you have a private pilot license, what happens is the private pilot license has some privileges on it. One of the privileges on it is you are able to fly that plane as a PIC. A PIC is a pilot in command. You're going to be able to fly that plane solo, build up the hours that you're required to have. You're able to take a passenger on board, but in this case, you are limited on the refund, or you're limited on the reward that the passenger is supposed to give you. So what I mean by limitation of the reward is the passenger is not allowed to reward you for the flight. In layman's term, they are not supposed to pay you. Yeah, because you're not a commercial pilot. So once you've done your private pilot, you can go ahead and now start doing your commercial pilot license. As we had done our private pilot license, it requires the background knowledge, but the good thing in this case, you already have let's say the foundation of flying in you. So the commercial pilot license is a little bit advanced of the private pilot license. You need to do the knowledge test on each too, and you also need to do the commercial check ride on each. So for the commercial pilot license, to be able to be issued a commercial pilot license, you need to have a minimum of 200 hours. So these 200 hours are hours that you will have to build up from the word go. Remember that when you're doing your private pilot license, to be issued a private pilot license, you have to have a minimum of 45 hours. So these 45 hours is the bare minimum hours that you need, but technically people don't finish with 45 hours. People finish they are issued the PPL license with more than 45 hours. Technically it's usually around 70 to 80 hours depending on the different circumstances, or depending on how your schedule is, how the weather is, how your finances is. These are some of the factors that will affect your training. So remember, let's say for example you finish with the bare minimum hours, you're a smart student, you finish with 60 hours. So if you finish your PPL with 60 hours, you need an additional 140 hours so that you can be issued your commercial pilot license. So this 140 hours will require you to do a lot of cross countries. In this case, you need at least 20 hours of cross countries that you are the pilot in command, and these 20 hours will include you to do a much longer cross countries, a 300 nautical mile cross country that has 3 landings on different aerodromes that are not the home aerodrome that you departed from. So once you're done with the 200 hours, you are eligible to get the pilot, the commercial pilot license. But in between here, in between the hours towards the 200 hours, you also need to do a minimum of 35 hours of instructor of training with your instructor. So back again, you're going to go with your instructor, and you're going to do some review of exercises that you're going to be tested on your commercial pilot check ride. So these exercises, or these dual flights with your instructor, are going to be a little bit easier because it's more of the repetition of what you were doing earlier on your private pilot license. So in the commercial pilot world, what they usually look at is the smoothness of your flying, how competent you are at flying that plane in a smooth manner. Remember, in the private pilot license, what they usually looked at is the safety factor of you flying, but in the commercial license, they usually look at your smoothness of your flying, how good you are at situation awareness, coordination of flying, because remember that you are doing the commercial license so that you can go ahead and become a pilot of the regional airlines or the national airlines. So once you have done your commercial license, now you are able to go ahead and do some types of ratings. These ratings will enable you to fly aircrafts that have different types of engines. So let's say, for example, you aspiring to become a Boeing pilot. A Boeing pilot or a Boeing airplane, let's say a 787, it has different types of engine. It doesn't have the single engine that your training aircraft had. So you will need an endorsement of a multi-engine training. So this multi-engine training, it doesn't take that much of a time. Technically, people say it takes about 3 days, but it can take, let's say, a week or two. It's usually very fast because you're just learning the basics of flying multi-engine airplane, and more so you're learning about the asymmetric thrust. That is a new topic when we are talking about multi-engine plane. Once you get the multi-engine endorsement, you're going to go ahead and learn about instrument flying. Yeah, I remember I talked about instrument flying when we were talking about the private pilot license. So in this case, we are going to learn an in-depth about the instrument flying. This includes your training at instrument condition. In this case, when you're flying into the clouds, you are solely relying on the instrument to fly, and you must trust the instrument. So you have to undergo that type of an endorsement training, so that once you attain that instrument rating, you'll be able to fly those big commercial airplanes. Then later on, after you have the endorsement of the instrument rating, you're going to start applying for your jobs. Technically, at that point, you'll be having around 250 hours. To be honest with you, not a lot of companies hire low-time hourly pilots. So what people usually do is they usually go ahead and start doing the low-time type of pilot jobs. So there are different types of pilot jobs that you can get, so that you can rank up the hours to be able to be employed by big regional airlines or national airlines. So you can start applying for, let's say, tow burner pilot jobs, or maybe skydiving pilots job. And once you get that job, you're going to do that job for a specific amount of time until you rank up specific number of hours to be able to be employed by a certain company. So those hours, they depend on different types of companies. There are companies that will hire you with around 700 hours, others 500 hours, but typically a lot of companies, they usually like to hire you with more than 1,000 hours. Getting from 250 hours to 1,000 hours is a real hassle as a pilot. So you have to persevere enough, do all those types of jobs so that you can get to that magical number of hours to be employed in a regional airline or a national airline. So let's say, for example, you have done you have applied your jobs, and you really don't have luck on getting a job. People usually like to go towards the flight instructing route. So in this case, you're going to learn how to teach someone how to fly. Remember, you had instructors, right? Those instructors were also commercial pilots, and they also learned how to teach someone to fly. If you learn about that, then later on you're going to rank up hours for yourself by teaching someone else how to fly. It's a win-win situation where the student learns how to fly, and you also learn you also earn those hours as you're teaching them how to fly. So later on, after you rank up those hours, you're going to join a company. The company, in this case, they are going to assess your training itself, they're going to give you something that we call PPC. PPC is a pilot proficiency check. They're going to train you, go through a ground session, go through a simulator session, and they're going to train you with a simulator that is in line with the aircraft that company flies. And in that case, you're going to be able to be employed and get that first job. Hooray! So let's say, for example, you have gotten that first job. So what next? So you're going to stick with that company, rank up some good hours. In this case, these hours they are different from the hours that you were doing from the training itself, in as much as these hours are concurrent, but in this case you have advanced hours on a multi-engine airplane. In this case, the engine itself is not the same as the engine that you used back in your training. This will become a type of engine that is turbine powered, and your training, most probably you're going to be doing it on a piston engine aircraft. A lot of companies, they prefer pilots who have turbine hours. So the more turbine hours that you have, the much better in terms of qualifications you're going to have. So you're going to rank up those hours, get up on the seniority ladder. So in aviation, how it works is the earlier you join a company, the more advanced your training, your flying is going to be. So the earlier you join, the more people are being promoted, the more also you're going to be promoted, and higher and higher and higher you're going to get on top of the seniority list, to a point that you're going to also move from the right seat of the plane, of which it's called the first officer seat, towards the left side of the plane, of which it's usually the captain. Once you become the captain, you're usually given 4 stripe bars that we have here. I'm sure you usually wonder how what these stripes usually mean. These stripes, they usually indicate the seniority of the pilots. So in this case, I have 1 bar in this case, but 1 bar usually indicates a student pilot. That doesn't mean that I'm a student pilot, but I wrote this bar to show you that this is how you can start. But as soon as you become a commercial pilot, you have 3 bars with you, and also 3 bars indicate that you are also a first officer. 2 bars indicate that you are a qualified private pilot, and 4 bars, like we said, it indicates that you are the captain of the plane. So once you get into the captain seat, you're going to have a good flying experience, and you're going to be able to command that airplane, and all the responsibilities of that flight are going to be depending on you. So everyone on board, that's how you become a pilot. You must be wondering how much in terms of expense do you require to become a pilot. I won't lie with you, the budget that you have in flying, or how much you're going to spend on flying, depends on the preparation. I will continue insisting on the preparation all over and over again, because if you are prepared, you're not going to experience a lot of reviewing of the topics that you did. If you're prepared, you're going to spend less money on training, and the less money that you spend on training, the much faster your training is going to be, and also much confident the much confident you're going to be in terms of getting to these check rides, doing this knowledge test, and that's going to be more beneficial to you. So that's how you become a pilot. And all those people that are wondering, do you only become a pilot in Canada? No. You can become a pilot in any country that you are at. I believe the country that you are at, it has an aviation authority. And we might be wondering why I indicated Canada in the topic of today. It's because there are different reasons why people come to Canada to do their training. First of all, training in Canada is relatively cheap as compared to other countries. You have also to do proper research when you're looking for a school to do your training at. Spend at least 3 good weeks learning the pros and cons of different schools, because like we said, a school is like a business. So you don't want to go to a cheap school because you see their training is cheaper and you don't know the insights why it's cheaper. It might be cheaper because the quality that they are offering, it's much lower. So you have to look at the pros and cons before you choose any flight training school. So that doesn't mean you have to go all the way extravagant to spend maybe $200,000 or maybe $150,000 to do your training. No way, that's too much expensive. Try to find a margin, try to find that sweet spot that will favor your budget. There are different ways you can finance your training. You can try use the funds that you have been saving. You can also apply for scholarships. There are different scholarships that are available out there. Scholarships for different organizations. You can be able to get them online and apply for them. So I'm really happy that we have discussed about this topic, and I'm looking forward to get all those questions that you guys have regarding how to become a pilot, and I will be able to answer all those questions easily. So having said that, I'm going to leave you with one note that if you want to become a pilot, this is the best time to become a pilot, because the main reason because of that is a lot of pilots that are in the airlines are almost getting to their retirement age, and the pilot demand is going to skyrocket in the next 5 years. So this is the best time to become a pilot. Go ahead, do the research, and you'll find out why I'm talking about that. We are not going to talk about the pay that you get to be paid on different types of flying, but that is going to be the next topic of our next lesson or our next live. So I'm really happy to have you today, and I'm really happy that you guys have enjoyed this live. I hope it has been so informative to all of you, and looking forward to see you guys on our next live. Please, before you leave, give us a like and please subscribe to this channel. I love you the most, and see you guys. Up we fly.